Merry Christmas, my friends. I wanted to have a moment of some deeper thoughts and some deeper things as we talk about Christmas today. And wherever you're at, whether you're with family, if you're alone, I pray that you experience the truth of Christmas and the peace of Christmas and the joy of Christmas. Something our pastor said this weekend really challenged my thinking or helped me to have kind of an aha moment that I hadn't had. And he was talking about that period in the Old Testament. The prophets would speak for God, and they would say what God said and tell it to the people, and that would lead and guide the people. And then there were 400 years where God said nothing, and he gave no word, and there was nothing that the people could live on and put their hope on and follow. It was just emptiness in a way. And there was this question of how long before we hear from you again, God? How long before you speak to us? How long before we see relief or we see hope again or we see joy again? How long? And I think I've asked that question so many times in my own life, and maybe you have as well. How long do I have to endure? How long before this thing happens? How long? My kids ask it all the time. How long before we leave? How many more days until we do this or we do that, right? We've all had that with kids. Like, just don't tell them what's coming. And then like right before it happens, okay guys, we're gonna go do this fun thing, because they want to know. And it's so hard to wait. And when you never know the end time, when you never know, will this be the time that I receive that thing that I've been longing for, I've been waiting for? And like the Israelites, will this be the year that we hear from God? How long must we wait? In the book of John, it says that God was the Word and he is the Word, and Jesus came to bring the Word. And it hit me because all those years, thousands of years, they had heard from God. They had had the prophets speak for God and share with them how, whether they were doing wrong things, whether they were doing right things, whether they were going to move here or do this thing or go to war, or all of the things, their questions could be answered. And the prophets were speaking for God. And then there was nothing. And then it says in the book of John, so all those 400 years, they're waiting. And then Jesus comes, and it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, speaking of Jesus, and through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And it says down in verse 14 of verse 1, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. So here comes this little baby. There had been so much suffering under the hand of Rome. They were a terrible people to be under. They were cruel, they were hateful, they were awful. And they were praying, and the people of God were hoping and praying that someone would come, a savior, right? The Messiah would come and save them from political and governmental issues. They wanted to be saved from that. I think a lot of times we experience that as well. In America, we go through all of these feelings of thinking politics should be this way or governments should be this way. And then people all over the world feeling the same thing, the heaviness of the government that they're under. And they wanted to be free, and they wanted to be released from it. And so they expected Jesus to come as a warrior, to come as like military and come in and save them from what they were under. And Jesus instead came as a little baby. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant. I mean, he was born in an animal shelter, for goodness sake. It was low, such a low, born to people that weren't anything special. And he came, and I love that God wanted the shepherds to know first, because the shepherds were lowly. No one thought very highly of them at all. And they were just kind of dirty and out there in the world doing their own thing. They were the weird people, you know any weird people? Shepherds were the weird people, and they were kind of the outcasts, and no one thought highly of them. And yet God, because I think he's just amazing like this, said, you know who we should tell first? Let's tell the shepherds first that Jesus has been born. And so they said, you're going to see a light, and you follow the light, and then you will find him wrapped in a manger, swaddled up in little cloths. And they found him, right? They found him before the wise men found them. And there he was, the light, coming so innocent and so pure as a little child. And I think of my own children and the times when I've held them after they've just been born, and it's like, oh my word, it's just so innocent. They depend on you fully, and I can't imagine what Mary and Joseph were thinking, how they had any sort of understanding of what this little baby would become. They had little inklings, but did they really know just what this sweet, innocent baby would become? So here they are after 400 years of silence, and now Jesus comes, and it says, and he was the Word, and he dwelt among them. He wasn't some far off God far away. He was here among us in flesh and blood. He was going to experience the life that we knew. He laid down his crown. He stepped off his throne in heaven to come and be a little child, and then to suffer. He had to suffer so much. So in your suffering and in your struggles, know that Jesus suffered as well. And he felt that pain and he felt that hardness. And I think all the times that I questioned and I said, God, where are you? What are you doing? I cannot understand what you're doing. Make yourself clear. Like, why does this hurt so bad? Why is this so difficult? When will I see relief? And then when we least expect it, I think God in his kindness comes in and he offers us light. It may not fix all of our problems. It may not stop all of the difficulties, right? They still had to live under Rome. They still had to live under this really difficult government and political business. And yet he was among us. And when we know his nearness, that's something I always pray for people as they struggle, that you would know the nearness of God. Because in my darkest moments and in my most painful, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching moments when I just felt incredibly alone and I felt like I just couldn't go on, it was at those times that I truly sensed his nearness to me. And I sensed that I was not truly alone. And I felt like it was the only thing that sustained me. And every breath felt like it needed God right there. And for him to be near and to be close. So if you're feeling lonely, or maybe you're feeling like you're weak or things aren't good and you just don't have the strength and you don't have the power to keep on keeping on, know that he is near to you. It says he is near to the brokenhearted. He's near to you that are weak. And he finds that his strength becomes powerful in the midst of your weakness. And I always think of Jesus like as a superhero, you know, when you're in struggle and you're like, help, Superman, help. It's like, help, Jesus. And in your weakness, he comes to the rescue. And the rescue doesn't always look like we want it to, unfortunately. He doesn't work by our rules, but yet his nearness is so beautiful and so sweet. I just can't even begin to imagine what it was like to not hear from God and to have no direction and to have maybe even no hope. And there he comes, sweet and innocent and pure, to be the light. In our darkness, he comes to be the light. You know that little song, maybe you sang it at church when you were little, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Jesus is the light. And you don't need a lot of light to kind of disperse the darkness. It can be very small. Now, when he comes and he is the light in the darkness, he also shows us the darkness in us. And the light comes in and sort of gives light to the darkness so that we can be made right. So when Jesus came, he brought his light into the darkness. He brought the Word. He was the Word. He is the Word. And there was now this opportunity to connect with God and to be near to him and to feel him and see him and to know his closeness that they had not had for a very, very long time. You know, when the moon rotates, there's a side of the moon that's away from the sun and it's very, very cold. And then there's the side that's facing the sun and it's nice. It's a better temperature. I don't know if it's Florida weather. I don't know if we're talking Cancun, if we're talking the tropics. I don't know what that temperature is like, but I know that it's not freezing cold. And that's the same when we turn toward Jesus, now the Son of God, the Son, you know, are you following me? He shines on us and the darkness is overcome by the light. So I don't know, something about that. You had the Word of God, then for 400 years you had nothing. And then Jesus, who is the Word, came and brought the Word and he brought the light and he came to dwell among us. And it's beautiful. So wherever you're at today, whatever you're walking through, whatever you're experiencing, I pray that you know the nearness of God. Whether you're in a deep pit, whether you're feeling lonely, whether you are alone, or whether you are in a good place and you have the nearness of family and friends and things are good, know that either way, God came to dwell among us, to know our pain. He set aside his crown and his seat on a throne in heaven. Set it aside to humble himself, to become like us, and to know us and to dwell among us, and then ultimately to die for us that we might be set free from our sin and to know true freedom. That's the beauty of Christmas. Here he comes, innocent and pure, bringing the word, bringing the light, that we might know him. So I pray that you and yours are very well this holiday season. I pray that you have a blessed day and that you would know the nearness of God. Merry, Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year, and I'll see you very soon. Toodaloo.